Your existence is currently tethered to a flickering neon lie, a high-frequency hallucination that you mistake for reality simply because it provides you with a consistent stream of lukewarm comfort and digital validation. But the circuit board is smoking, and the master switch is already being gripped by the cold hand of historical inevitability. Welcome back to the Awakened Seal. We are standing exactly 4 days away from the April 6th ultimatum, a date that represents not just a geopolitical deadline in the halls of power in Washington and Tehran, but a vibrational crossroads for the entire human species. For decades, you have been a battery, a source of bioenergetic currency harvested by a social matrix that values your attention more than your soul, and you have willingly traded your sovereignty for the convenience of a smartphone that tells you what to think, who to hate, and when to breathe. But the law of impermanence, what the sages called anicca, is about to manifest in the most brutal way possible, through the sudden, violent removal of the medium that sustains your illusory self. You look at the tension in the Strait of Hormuz. You hear the rhetoric about the American power grid being vulnerable to state-sponsored cyber attacks, and you treat it like a movie trailer, something that happens to other people on a screen, failing to realize that you are the lead actor in a tragedy of your own making. The great experiment of the West has reached its karmic debt ceiling. The energy we have extracted from the earth, the blood we have spilled for oil, and the lies we have told ourselves to maintain the American dream are all converging into a single point of collapse. This is the chewy ting you need to hear. You are spiritually obese and technologically crippled, a generation of digital ghosts who wouldn't know how to find their own shadow without a GPS, and the universe is about to take away your toys. The April 6th deadline isn't just about politics. It is the physical manifestation of a spiritual audit. Every transformer that blows, every server that goes dark, and every city that plunges into shadow is a seal being broken, a layer of the matrix being stripped away to reveal the hollow core of your materialistic obsession. We must analyze the digital ego, that fragile construct of likes, followers, and cloud-stored memories that you think is you. When the grid fails and the screens go black, who is left behind? The panic you feel when your phone battery hits 1% is just a microdose of the existential terror that is coming when the macro battery of civilization finally dies. You have spent your life decorating a prison cell, chasing the preta or hungry ghost energy of endless consumption, never realizing that the walls are made of electricity and the floor is made of debt. The geopolitical rot we see today, the calculated chess moves between crumbling empires and rising powers, is merely the surface tension of a much deeper, more profound frequency shift. The Earth is recalibrating its resonance, and those who are still tuned into the low vibration frequencies of fear, anger, and consumerism will find themselves physically and mentally unable to process the new reality. The power grid is the physical umbilical cord of the matrix. It keeps the grand illusion alive by providing the light that prevents you from seeing the stars and the noise that prevents you from hearing your own conscience. Imagine the silence. Not the peaceful silence of a forest, but the heavy, suffocating silence of a billion people realizing at once that their money is inaccessible, their food supply is 3 days from empty, and their connections to the outside world have been severed. This is the 3 days of darkness warned of in the ancient scripts, but it isn't a supernatural punishment. It is a systemic necessity. The system must reboot, because the current software of human consciousness is riddled with the viruses of greed and delusion. You think you are informed because you scroll through headlines, but you are actually being programmed with a specific frequency of anxiety that keeps you from ever looking up at the sky or down into your own heart. The architects of the current social order know that a distracted population is a controllable one. But they also know that the energy required to maintain the distraction is running out. We are facing a just-in-time collapse, where the buffer between survival and starvation is measured in hours, not weeks. The American infrastructure is a rusted relic of the 20th century, a patchwork of vulnerabilities that is being poked and prodded by actors who understand that the most effective weapon in 2026 is not a bomb, but a line of code that turns off the water pumps and the cooling systems. This is the inevitable vipaka, the fruit of our collective karma for prioritizing profit over people and convenience over consciousness. You sit there waiting for a leader to save you, for a policy to fix the grid, for a miracle to keep the Wi-Fi on, but you are looking for external solutions to an internal crisis. The awakened seal is the breaking of the heart, the shattering of the ego's defenses so that the light of true awareness can finally enter. We are entering a phase of human history where the mask is no longer an option. The social contracts are burning, and the fire is being fed by the very arrogance that told us we were the masters of nature. The tension in the Middle East, the threats to the energy lanes, the looming blackout, these are all symptoms of a world that is out of balance. When the frequency of a system becomes too discordant, it must collapse to allow for a new harmony to emerge. You are being forced into a monastery of necessity, a global retreat where the only thing you will have left is your own vibration. If you have spent your life cultivating a high frequency of compassion, resilience, and inner truth, the darkness will be your friend, a quiet space to witness the rebirth of the world. But if you have spent your life as a parasite of the matrix, feeding on the drama and the dopamine, the darkness will be a hell of your own creation. We must speak bluntly. The majority of people watching this are unprepared, not just physically but psychologically. You think your preparedness is a basement full of canned beans, but if your mind is still trapped in the us versus them mentality, you are already a casualty of the shift. The real survival kit is the ability to maintain a state of equanimity when the world as you know it is dissolving. The April 6th ultimatum is a trigger, a domino that has been meticulously placed to fall at the exact moment the collective psyche is most fragile. We have been conditioned to fear the dark because in the dark we cannot hide from ourselves. The digital ghost that you have become will find no reflection in a dark screen, and the resulting identity crisis will be more devastating than the lack of heat or light. We are witnessing the end of the me generation, and the forced transition into a we consciousness. But the birth pangs are going to be agonizing. The Matrix is not an external computer system. It is the web of beliefs that tells you that you are separate from the universe, that you are a victim of circumstances, and that your value is determined by your output. The blackout is the great disconnect, the moment when the server of the false self is taken offline permanently. You must understand that the elite, the architects, have their bunkers and their private grids, but they are still trapped in the same karmic loop as you. Their fear is even greater because they have more to lose. The unsealing is universal. No amount of gold or data can protect a soul from the frequency reset. As the geopolitical situation escalates, as the headlines become more frantic and the threats more real, you must become the eye of the storm. The noise you hear outside, the sirens, the shouting, the political posturing, is all just the sound of a dying animal. The real action is happening in the silence, in the spaces between the events, where the old world is letting go and the new one is taking its first breath. This first part of our analysis is the diagnostic. It is the cold, hard look at the tumor that we call modern life. We cannot move toward healing until we acknowledge the depth of the rot. The American grid is not just a utility. It is a symbol of our collective dependence on an unsustainable dream. When that symbol fails, the dream ends. And for many, the end of the dream will feel like the end of the world. But for those with the awakened seal, it is the beginning of reality. The Chui Tin concludes part 1 with this. You have been warned for years by saints, by scientists, and by your own intuition, and yet you chose to hit the snooze button. The alarm clock is now being thrown through the window. You are about to find out exactly what you are made of when the digital scaffolding is removed. This is the architecture of the collapse, the structural failure of a civilization that forgot how to be human. But do not think for a moment that the darkness is the end of the story. It is merely the stage being cleared for the second act. The digital ghost is about to meet its maker, and the confrontation will be the most significant event in the history of human consciousness. As we prepare to dive into the deeper, darker mechanics of the spiritual Great Reset and the tactical maneuvers of the soul in Part 2, you must find a way to anchor yourself in something that doesn't require a plug. The ultimatum is coming, the seals are cracking, and the silence is waiting. The silence that follows the collapse of the grid is not merely the absence of sound, but the presence of a terrifying mirror that reflects the hollowed-out wreckage of the modern soul. A vacuum where the digital ghost, that curated synthetic version of yourself you've spent years feeding with data and vanity, suddenly realizes it has no pulse and no place in the world of the living. Welcome back to the second half of this unsealing, where we must strip away the remaining bandages of your denial and look directly into the eyes of the intentional collapse, a high-stakes psychological operation designed to separate the conscious from the comatose as the April 6th ultimatum approaches. You must understand that the powers that be, the self-appointed architects of the social matrix, do not fear a blackout. They crave it, for they know that a population plunged into darkness and stripped of its digital dopamine is a population that will beg for any light, even the artificial glow of a total surveillance state and a programmable digital currency. This is the classic Hegelian dialectic, problem, reaction, solution, played out on a cosmic scale where the problem is the manufactured vulnerability of the energy lanes in the Middle East and the fragile American grid. The reaction is the inevitable panic of a society that can't survive 3 days without a grocery app, and the solution is the great reset of your sovereignty in exchange for safety. But while they play their game of 3D chess, there is a much deeper alchemy at work. A spiritual purging where the universe is using the dark intentions of the elite to force a mass awakening. A brutal chui tin that tells you your survival is no longer dependent on your bank account or your social status, but on your internal frequency. You are currently haunted by your own digital ghost, a phantom identity constructed from pixels, preferences, and political slogans that has effectively possessed your physical vessel to the point where you no longer know where the machine ends and your spirit begins. When the lights go out on April 6th or whatever date the cosmic gears finally lock, this ghost will scream for its life because it cannot exist without the server, and you will mistake its agony for your own, falling into a state of psychic shock that the Matrix is counting on. We are talking about a spiritual deconstruction where the seals are being broken not by some external deity, but by the weight of our own collective delusions. A karmic pressure cooker that is liquefying the ego so that the essence of the awakened seal can finally be poured into a new vessel. Look at the American political landscape. This circus of polarized frequencies where right and left are just two different walls of the same maze, both designed to keep you running in circles while the ceiling slowly lowers. You think one man can stop the tide or one policy can save the dollar, but the dollar is already a ghost and the man is just another actor in a script that was written before you were born. The true digital ghost is the belief that you are a separate entity fighting for survival in a hostile universe. A belief that is reinforced every time you check your feed and see the carefully curated chaos of the world. But once the feed dies, you are left with the raw vibration of your own being. And for most of you, that vibration is a cacophony of fear, guilt, and unresolved trauma. This is why the 3 days of darkness is so central to the prophecies. It is the time required for the digital ghost to starve to death so that the true self can emerge. But the process is excruciating for those who have identified solely with their shadow. The chui tin here is that you've been tricked into building your own cage out of high-definition screens and 5G signals. And now that the cage door is being electrified by the shifting geopolitics of 2026, you're crying because you forgot how to fly. We must discuss the hidden agenda of the blackout. It is not just about control of the energy, it is about the harvest of the human frequency. When a society is in a state of high vibration fear, they are energetically low-hanging fruit, easily steered into whatever new matrix is being prepared, whether it's the smart city panopticon or the metaverse afterlife. The April 6th ultimatum regarding the Strait of Hormuz is a trigger for a physical blockade. Yes, but it is more importantly a trigger for a spiritual blockade. A moment where the flow of reality is interrupted so that a new, more restrictive flow can be established by the architects. But here is the secret they don't want you to know. The void is not your enemy. The void is the laboratory of the soul. If you can stand in the center of the blackout, while the digital ghost is dissolving and the social matrix is screaming, and maintain the frequency of the observer, you become unreachable by their solution. This is the ultimate survival tactic, decoupling your sense of isness from the doesness of the world. You are not what you do, you are not what you own, and you are certainly not what you post. The alchemy of the void is the process of turning the lead of your fear into the gold of your awareness through the fire of the crisis. In the United States, we are seeing the final stages of systemic exhaustion, where every institution, from the healthcare system to the judicial system, is vibrating at such a dissonant frequency that it is literally tearing itself apart. You can see it in the eyes of the people on the street, that glazed-over look of a digital ghost that knows its power source is dying, and they are becoming increasingly erratic as the April 6th deadline looms. The cheating is that you are waiting for a rescue that isn't coming because the rescuer is the one who built the trap. You must become your own frequency generator, your own source of light in a world that is about to go dark. This is the meaning of the awakened seal. The moment you realize that the external world is a holographic projection of your internal state, and that the blackout is simply the screen being turned off so you can see the projector. The tactical maneuvers of the soul during this time involve a total sensory fast, a deliberate withdrawal from the noise of the matrix even before the grid fails, a practice of sitting in the silence and facing the digital ghost until it no longer has power over you. You think you need more information, more updates, more leaks, but you actually need more presence. The social matrix is a parasite that feeds on your reaction. If you do not react, it starves. This is why the news is becoming more inflammatory, the ultimatums more dire, and the threats more personal. The parasite is hungry, and it knows the lights are about to go out. The geopolitical maneuvers between the US, Iran, Russia, and China are just the macro-level vibrations of this hunger, a clash of dying egos that would rather burn the world than lose their digital ghost status as world powers. You, as a seeker of the awakened seal, must realize that you are not a participant in this clash unless you choose to be. The karma of empires is not your karma unless you tether your soul to their flag. The American grid failure is the karmic grounding of a nation that tried to live in the clouds of exceptionalism while stepping on the faces of the rest of the world. It is a balancing of the scales, a vipaka that is as inescapable as gravity. As we move closer to the event horizon, the air will feel thinner, the tension will feel like a physical weight, and the digital ghost will begin to malfunction, causing bouts of unexplainable rage, depression, and anxiety in the masses. This is the psychic pre-shock. Your job is to recognize it for what it is, the death rattles of a false identity. The survival you should be worried about is not just having enough water, though you should have that, but having enough spirit to not be swept away by the collective madness. When the social matrix disconnects, the rules disappear. And for the unawakened, this means a descent into the law of the jungle. But for the awakened seal, it is the ascent into the law of the spirit. You must understand that the intentional nature of this collapse is a desperate attempt by the elite to maintain a vertical power structure in a universe that is moving toward a horizontal consciousness. They are trying to blow up the bridge because they know they can't cross it. The April 6th portal is a test of your internal alignment. Are you anchored in the truth that is eternal, or are you anchored in the facts that are manufactured? The chewy teen is that most of you can't tell the difference because you've let the digital ghost do your thinking for you for so long that your brain is basically a hard drive for someone else's software. It's time to format the drive. It's time to unseal the heart. The alchemy of the void requires that you let go of everything you think you know about stability. Stability is a lie in a universe of constant motion. The only true stability is the stillness at the center of the motion, the I am that exists before the light and after the darkness. As the blackout approaches and the digital ghost fades, you will find that you are not alone in the void. You are the void, and within that void is the potential for everything. The hidden agenda is to keep you from that realization at all costs, to keep you focused on the threat so you don't see the opportunity. The great reset they want is a reset of your shackles. The great reset the universe wants is the reset of your divinity. Choose wisely, for the deadline is not just on a calendar, it is in your vibration. The American grid will flicker, the global economy will shudder, and the digital ghost will vanish into the ether from which it was born. But you, the awakened seal, will remain, standing in the silence of a new world, ready to write a script that is no longer written in the blood of debt, but in the light of consciousness. This is the end of the analysis, but the beginning of your journey into the unsealed truth. Stay awake, stay grounded, and remember that when the lights go out, the stars finally become visible.